is the pyloric sphincter, marks the beginning of the small intestine. And then after we get to the end of the ileum, the last part of the small intestine, there's going to be another sphincter, but here we call it a valve instead. So this is called the iliosphincter, or ileocecal valve is the sphincter that marks the end of the small intestine, the ileocecal valve. Yep. Yeah, the little. Right. So this is the end of the small intestine, and then this. Yeah, where it like pinches together. So what's going to happen, the reason for this name, ileocecal valve, so ileo comes from the ileum, right? So that's the last part of the small intestine is the ileum. The word cecal comes from the first structure that we would enter into in the large intestine, which is called the ceca. So from the small intestine, the next and last technical organ that we're going to pass through is going to be the large intestine. So the large intestine is wider, but it's not nearly as long as the small intestine, so it kind of wraps around the outside of the small intestine and then heads into the rectum and the anal canal. But when we go into the large intestine, so we're going to go through this ileocecal valve, the very first part, so it's like kind of an enlarged pouch where you would first go into, again it's kind of cut off here, is the cecum. So, and I drew a picture here too. So the cecum, so here would be the ileocecal valve coming in. Valve, and then you enter into the cecum, which is just the first part of the large intestine. Now the little wormy structure that is extending off of the cecum is called the vermiform appendix. Vermiform appendix is your appendix, so it is just the technical term for appendix. The appendix has immune system function, so there are white blood cells that are found there. What can happen is that food and fecal matter can get stuck in this region right here, and it can cause the appendix to get inflamed, which is appendicitis. And if it does not heal itself, which oftentimes it does not, it can get inflamed to the point where it can basically explode. And all of that content from your large intestine can get emptied into your peritoneal cavity. So basically inside your abdomen. Yeah.
Can that happen from like a bowel obstruction?
It can. Yes, it can happen for all kinds of reasons.
Okay.
But yes, that definitely is a reason why. Even just being like really constipated can lead to it. Like it's common. It is a relatively common condition, but it's very serious. It does tend to be, if it's going to happen in your lifetime, it's more likely to happen when you're a little bit younger. So I think the most common age is like late teens to 20s is usually when it happens. I had a student that it happened to last semester where he ended up having to get it removed. So it's just something to kind of be aware of. Just, classic symptoms are really, really intense pain in your lower right quadrants is your abdomen. But yeah, so that's appendicitis is coming from inflammation of the appendix. So cecum is the very first part. What's going to happen then is for the large intestine, the rest of it is divided into the different areas. So if we have food or fecal matter at this point that has entered into the cecum, the pathway it's going to go is it's going to head up. This next part is called the ascending colon. And then as we get up closer to the liver, anytime you see hepatic, that is in reference to the liver. So a flexure is a turn. So this ascending colon is going to turn around where the liver is, and where it turns is called the hepatic flexure. And then we're going to make our way across. As we are going across, this entire region here is called the transverse colon. And then as we get onto the left side of the body, we will be near the spleen. And so where it turns on the left side is called the splenic flexure. And then heading down is going to be the descending colon. So the last part of the colon what's gonna happen is that after we have gone down kind of on the left side, the colon is gonna kind of make a turn and create this kind of weird S shape. So it's gonna turn and kind of go back and around. When it does that, it makes this turn, it is called the sigmoid colon. On your models, it's kind of hard to see it. You can see that after the descending colon, it kind of disappears a little bit and then it comes back out. All of that part that is back there that you can't really see would be part of the sigmoid colon. So it kind of wraps around and goes back a little bit and then comes back out. Okay, so then the very last part then would be the rectum. So after we have left the sigmoid colon, this last part would be the rectum. At the very end of the rectum is the anal canal. So the anal canal would be the sphincter. Basically, it's lined by, or I guess it's lined by the sphincter, which marks the end of the large intestine. The beginning was the ileocecal valve. The end is the anal sphincter. So for the anal sphincter, there's actually two components to it. So there is the internal and the external. So if you look at the models, you can see it looks like the internal is a lot thinner. So the width of this muscle is not nearly as thick as the external. There is a difference between these two. So the internal sphincter is made of smooth muscle. It is involuntary. So basically when the rectum and the last part of your large intestine gets full, you involuntarily relax that sphincter. So that will just relax, basically preparing you to go to the bathroom. But if you don't poop yourself, the reason why is because you also have an external sphincter, and this is under voluntary control. So this would be made with skeletal muscle, and you're able to basically consciously make the decision to relax that one. But you have two. One you can't control, the other one you can. So internal is the inside one, and then the external sits on the outside of it, and that's voluntary.
Is the external one the dark?
They're both dark, it's thicker.
Okay.
Yeah, so the internal one is a thinner layer, and then the external is thicker